The night was unusually cold for Seattle, with fog rolling in from the bay and wrapping around the tall buildings like ghostly fingers. Tom Miller wiped down the counter of his food truck one last time, his shoulders aching from a long day of serving hot meals to busy office workers and tourists. At 42, he wasn't getting any younger, but his Tom's Tasty Treats food truck had become a local favorite over the past 5 years. The smell of grilled sandwiches and his famous spicy fries still lingered in the air as he prepared to close for the night. Just as he was about to shut off the lights, he heard a strange noise from the alley behind his truck. It wasn't the usual sound of cats fighting or drunk people stumbling home. This sound was different, almost like a whisper, but with an odd musical quality to it. "Hello," Tom called out, grabbing his flashlight. "Someone there." The beam of light cut through the darkness, revealing something that made him drop the flashlight in shock. Huddled against the brick wall were two figures that definitely weren't human. Their skin seemed to shift colors like oil on water, moving between shades of blue and purple. Their eyes were large, almost taking up half their faces, and they glowed faintly in the dark like cat's eyes. Tom's first instinct was to run, but then he noticed how they were trembling. One of them had wrapped what looked like a torn piece of cloth around the other, and they were pressed together for warmth. Despite their alien appearance, their body language was unmistakably that of scared, hungry creatures. "Hey there," Tom said softly, the way he used to talk to stray cats as a kid. Are you okay?" The aliens, because that's what they had to be, flinched at his voice. The slightly taller one pushed the other behind her in a protective gesture. Their movements were weak and shaky, reminding Tom of the homeless people he sometimes gave leftover food to at the end of the day. Instead of calling the police or running away screaming, Tom did something that would change not just his life, but the course of human history. He walked back to his food truck, grabbed 2 of his best grilled cheese sandwiches, the ones with 3 kinds of cheese and his secret spice blend, and slowly approached the aliens again. "You look hungry," he said, holding out the food. "It's not much, but it's hot and fresh." The aliens looked at each other, then at the food. The taller one made a chirping sound that somehow conveyed both worry and hope. The smaller one reached out with a 6-fingered hand that trembled slightly. Tom noticed their fingers were longer and more delicate than human hands, with small iridescent scales that caught the light. He placed the sandwiches in their hands and stepped back, giving them space. The aliens sniffed the food carefully. The smaller one touched the sandwich with what looked like sensory organs on their wrist, and then took a tiny bite. Their large eyes widened, and a soft blue glow seemed to pulse under their skin. They devoured the sandwiches in seconds, and Tom noticed something strange. The food seemed to glow briefly as it was absorbed directly through the membranes in their mouths. The smaller alien made a sound that reminded Tom of wind chimes, while the taller one reached out toward him with an empty hand. "Wait here," Tom said, already heading back to his truck. "I got more food." As he gathered more sandwiches and some bottles of water, Tom's mind was racing. He knew he should probably call someone. The police, the FBI, maybe NASA. But looking at those scared, hungry faces, all he could think about was how his mother had always taught him that kindness was a universal language. He didn't know it then, but this simple act of feeding 2 hungry strangers would soon ripple across the galaxy, changing everything humanity thought they knew about their place in the universe. After feeding the aliens that first night, Tom made a decision that would have seemed crazy to most people. He invited them to stay in the small apartment above his garage. The taller alien, who managed to communicate that her name was Mira, hesitated at first. The smaller one, Luna, was already swaying with exhaustion. "Look," Tom said, pointing to himself, and then to his car. "I can help. You need a safe place." The aliens communicated through a mixture of gestures, musical tones, and what seemed like telepathy between themselves. Finally, after a series of soft chirping sounds, they agreed to follow him. Tom's apartment wasn't much, just a bedroom, a small living room, and a kitchenette, but it was warm and private. The aliens' feet made soft pattering sounds on the wooden floor as they explored the space, touching everything with their sensitive wrist organs. "You can take the bed," Tom said, pulling out some clean blankets from his closet. "I'll sleep on the couch." As he set up the bed, he noticed something remarkable. When Luna touched a houseplant he kept by the window, the plant seemed to grow several inches instantly, its leaves becoming greener and healthier. Mira quickly pulled Luna's hand away, making an apologetic trilling sound. "That's different," Tom said, trying to keep his voice casual. "Can you communicate with plants?" Mira touched her throat, then made a series of gestures. Through a combination of hand movements and drawings on a notepad Tom provided, they'd managed to explain that their species could absorb and share energy with living things. The plant had responded to Luna's touch because she was still young, and sometimes couldn't control her abilities. Over the next few days, Tom learned more about his unusual guests. They didn't just eat food. They could absorb nutrients through their skin, which explained the strange glowing when they ate. Earth food was different from what they were used to, but their bodies could adapt to almost anything organic. One morning, Tom brought them breakfast from his food truck: eggs, toast, and his special hash browns. As they ate, he noticed their skin changing color to match the warm golden brown of the hash browns. "You like those, huh?" he asked, smiling as Luna made a happy humming sound that made all the water glasses in the room vibrate slightly. Mira drew more pictures, explaining that in their culture, sharing food was the highest form of trust and friendship. By feeding them that first night, Tom had unknowingly performed one of their most sacred social rituals. "Where I come from," Tom said, "we believe that food brings people together too. My mom always said a shared meal can turn strangers into family." At the word family, both aliens' skin rippled with patterns of deep blue, which Tom was starting to recognize as their version of emotional tears. Through more drawings and gestures, they explained that they hadn't eaten with family in what seemed to be months. Tom noticed they were getting stronger each day. Their movements became more graceful, and their skin colors grew brighter. Luna started making the plants in his apartment bloom out of season, and this time Mira didn't stop her. The small space was turning into a miniature jungle, with flowers blooming in impossible colors. One evening, as they sat sharing a meal of spaghetti, which fascinated them with its long, winding shapes, Mira managed to create a small ball of light between her hands. She shaped it into what looked like a star map, pointing to one bright spot, and then to herself and Luna. "That's your home?" Tom asked, watching the tiny points of light dance in the air. The aliens nodded, but their skin darkened to a deep purple, a color Tom hadn't seen before. Whatever had brought them to Earth, it was clear they couldn't go home yet. And somehow, Tom was okay with that. His food truck could support 3 people instead of 1, and having them around made his small apartment feel less lonely. What he didn't know was that his simple act of kindness was about to attract some very unwanted attention. As weeks passed, Tom's apartment became a fascinating blend of human and alien cultures. The walls now glowed with soft bioluminescent patterns that Mira and Luna had created, casting gentle waves of light that changed color with their moves. The plants continued to grow in impossible ways, with flowers that seemed to float in midair and leaves that sparkled like diamonds when sunlight hit them. Tom had learned to read their color changes like a language. Bright yellow meant happiness, deep blue showed sadness, purple indicated fear, and a shimmering rainbow effect meant they were excited. When they were truly content, their skin would pulse with a soft golden light that made the whole room feel warmer. One evening, while experimenting with new recipes in his food truck after hours, Tom discovered something extraordinary. He had been teaching them about Earth cuisine, and Luna was particularly fascinated by the process of cooking. As she watched him prepare a grilled cheese sandwich, her natural ability to manipulate energy created an unexpected result. "Look at this," Tom said, flipping the sandwich to reveal perfectly golden bread. But when Luna touched the edge of the grill with her sensitive wrist organs, the heat distributed itself evenly across the entire surface, creating the most perfectly cooked grilled cheese Tom had ever seen. Mira made an alarmed chirping sound, but Luna's skin flickered with excited rainbow patterns. Through their improved communication system of gestures and drawings, they explained that their species usually ate raw energy directly from their sun-like homestar. The idea of transforming food through heat was completely new to them. "This is amazing," Tom said, watching as Luna helped him cook more sandwiches, each one coming out perfect. "We could revolutionize cooking with this." But Mira's skin darkened to a warning purple, and she quickly drew a picture showing other humans capturing and studying them. Tom understood. They needed to keep their abilities secret. The aliens were equally fascinated by human customs. They watched in amazement as Tom said grace before meals, a habit he'd kept from his childhood. When he explained the concept of expressing gratitude for food, their skin rippled with patterns they'd never shown before, swirling galaxies of color that seemed to reflect deep spiritual understanding. Through their drawings, they shared stories of their own world. They came from a binary star system, where their people lived in floating cities that rode the solar winds between the twin suns. Food wasn't just sustenance for them. It was a direct connection to the cosmic forces that created life. One night, Mira decided to share something special. She created a small ball of pure energy between her hands, similar to the star map she'd shown before, but different. When Tom carefully touched it, he felt a rush of emotions and memories that weren't his own. He saw vast cities of crystal floating in space, felt the joy of soaring between twin suns, and experienced the deep connection their species shared with the energy of the universe. "That's beautiful," Tom whispered when the vision faded. "Thank you for sharing that with me." Luna, excited by this exchange, tried to create her own energy ball. Instead, she accidentally caused all the electronics in the apartment to turn on at once. The resulting power surge made the whole block flicker briefly. Mira quickly absorbed the excess energy, but Tom noticed his neighbor's lights coming on. "We need to be more careful," he said, drawing the curtains. But that was incredible. That night, as they shared a meal of Tom's latest experiments with alien-assisted cooking, he realized something important. Despite all their differences, their appearance, their abilities, their origin, they had found common ground in the simple act of sharing food and stories. But their peaceful routine was about to be disrupted. The power surge hadn't gone unnoticed, and somewhere in a government facility, unusual energy readings from Tom's neighborhood were setting off alarms. The cultural exchange was about to become a lot more complicated. The first sign of trouble came on a busy Tuesday afternoon. Tom noticed two men in dark suits standing near his food truck, asking questions to nearby vendors. They weren't buying food or making small talk. They were showing photos and taking notes. Inside his apartment, Mira and Luna's skin had turned a deep purple of fear. They could sense the energy signatures of scanning devices the agents carried, hidden in their briefcases. Through their drawings, they explained that these devices could detect their unique energy patterns if they got too close. "We need to be smart about this," Tom said, pacing his small living room. "They don't know you're here yet. We just need to keep it that way." But keeping secrets became harder each day. More agents appeared, setting up surveillance equipment in the buildings across the street. They were disguised as construction workers, but Tom noticed how their tools were always pointed at his building. One night, Luna got sick after trying to suppress her energy signature for too long. Her skin turned a sickly gray, and the plants in the apartment began to wilt. Mira explained through frantic gestures that Luna needed to release excess energy or she would get worse. "The basement," Tom whispered, remembering the old storage room beneath his garage. "It's lined with thick concrete. Maybe that could shield the energy." They carefully moved Luna downstairs, where she finally released the built-up energy. The concrete walls contained most of it, but the brief power spike made all the cars on the street honk their alarms at once. When Tom went outside to check, he saw the agents rushing toward the sound. Acting quickly, Tom started his food truck and drove it right into the middle of their path, pretending to have engine trouble. "Sorry, folks," he called out cheerfully. "Old girl's been having electrical problems all week. Probably what set off the alarms." The agents seemed suspicious but couldn't argue with this seemingly innocent explanation. Still, Tom knew they were running out of time. That evening, as they huddled in the apartment, Mira pulled out a small device she kept hidden. It looked like a crystal shard wrapped in metallic vines. Through their now-practiced communication, she explained it was a damaged distress beacon. If they could repair it, they could contact their people for help. "What do you need to fix it?" Tom asked, watching the crystal flicker weakly. Luna touched the device with her wrist sensors and made a series of complicated chirping sounds. Mira drew a picture of Earth's moon, then pointed to various electronic devices in the apartment. "You need power," Tom realized, "and something about the moon." They explained that the beacon needed two things: a massive surge of pure energy and a clear line of sight to the moon when it was full. The moon's position would help amplify the signal across space. "The next full moon is in 3 days," Tom said, checking his phone. "But where can we get that much power without being noticed?" Just then, they heard footsteps on the stairs leading to Tom's apartment. Through the window, they saw more agents approaching with handheld scanners. Mira and Luna's skin turned almost black with fear. Tom quickly opened the trapdoor to his storage basement. "Down here, quick," he whispered. "I'll handle them." As his alien friends disappeared into the basement, Tom heard a firm knock at his door. He took a deep breath, put on his best confused expression, and opened it to find 3 serious-looking agents. "Mr. Miller," one said, holding up a badge. "We're with the Department of Energy. We'd like to ask you some questions about the unusual power fluctuations in this area." Behind them, Tom could see more agents setting up strange equipment in the street. They had 3 days to fix the beacon and get a signal out, but first they had to get through the next few minutes without being discovered. The game of cat and mouse was about to become much more dangerous. Tom managed to convince the agents that his old electrical wiring was causing the power problems, but he knew they weren't fully satisfied. After they left, he rushed down to the basement where Mira and Luna waited in the darkness, their skin barely glowing with anxiety. In the dim light, Mira finally decided to show Tom the full truth. She touched her wrist sensors to the damaged beacon, and suddenly the basement walls were covered in projected images, a complete story told in light and color. The images showed a magnificent crystal city floating between 2 suns. Mira and Luna weren't just random aliens. They were part of the ruling family, something like princesses in human terms. Their skin patterns weren't just any patterns. They were royal markings that they'd been hiding by suppressing their natural glow. "So that's why you've been limiting your powers," Tom whispered, watching the story unfold on the walls. "You're not just hiding from Earth. You're hiding from your own people." The next images showed darker scenes, a plot within their government, attempts to remove their family from power, and sabotage that led to their ship crashing on Earth. What looked like an accident was actually an assassination attempt. Luna added her own memories to the projection, showing how they chose Earth specifically. Their scientists had been studying human broadcasts and signals for years. Among all the species they'd discovered, humans showed a unique capacity for kindness to strangers. They had hoped to find help here, but they hadn't expected someone like Tom. "But why didn't you tell me this before?" Tom asked, watching the images fade. Mira's skin rippled with apologetic blues and greens. Through their usual communication method, they explained that revealing their royal status to anyone could be dangerous. Their enemies had agents everywhere, even on distant planets like Earth. The government agents outside weren't just looking for alien activity. Somehow, their enemies had traced them to this area and had infiltrated Earth's security agencies. Some of those agents were actually assassins in disguise. Just then, they heard heavy footsteps above. Someone was in Tom's apartment. Mira's skin flashed a warning pattern, and Luna's hands began to glow with defensive energy. "Wait," Tom whispered, grabbing an old mirror from a storage box. He positioned it to see up the basement stairs without being noticed. Through the reflection, he saw men in black suits, but these ones moved differently, more like hunters than investigators. Luna started to power up her defensive abilities, but Mira stopped her. Through quick gestures, they explained that using their powers would broadcast their location to everyone looking for them. They were trapped. "I have an idea," Tom said, remembering something from his food truck. "But you'll have to trust me completely." He explained his plan through whispers and gestures. It was risky, but they had no choice. The fake agents upstairs were getting closer to the basement door. Mira and Luna looked at each other, their skin showing patterns Tom had never seen before, a mix of fear, hope, and determination. They were tired of running, tired of hiding their true selves. Through their gestures, they told Tom something that made his heart skip. By sharing food and shelter with them, he had unknowingly become part of their royal household under their laws. "Then we'll face this as a family," Tom said firmly, surprised by how right it felt to say those words. As the footsteps approached the basement door, Tom, Mira, and Luna prepared to put their desperate plan into action. The truth about their royal status had finally emerged, but an even bigger revelation was coming. One that would show there would be assassins, exactly why their scientists had warned them never to underestimate humans, especially humans who had been accepted into an alien royal family. The basement door began to open, and Tom smiled. Sometimes the best defense wasn't power or technology. It was something much simpler, something humans had perfected over thousands of years. The art of turning the tables on overconfident enemies. Tom's plan worked better than anyone expected. Using his food truck's generator and a clever mix of kitchen equipment, they managed to create enough electrical interference to mask Mira and Luna's energy signatures. The fake agents searched the basement but found nothing except what appeared to be a malfunctioning freezer unit sending out random power surges. But now, 3 days later, they faced an even bigger challenge. The full moon was rising, and they had one chance to get the distress beacon working. "The power station," Tom said, pointing to the map on his phone. "It's 2 miles outside the city. If we can get there during the maintenance window tonight, Luna's energy combined with the station's power might be enough to boost the signal." Mira's skin flickered with concern as she drew rapidly on their shared notepad. The message was clear. Using that much power would alert everyone to their presence. Not just the fake agents, but their entire home civilization would know exactly where they were. Luna added her own drawings, showing ships arriving, possibly starting a diplomatic incident that could expose Earth to interstellar politics before humanity was ready. Her skin pulsed with troubled green patterns. "But you can't keep hiding forever," Tom said softly. "And those assassins aren't going to stop looking." Just then, the beacon in Mira's hand started humming. Its crystal structure began glowing with an internal light, and suddenly a holographic message appeared in the air. It showed a massive fleet of ships already on their way. Someone had detected their presence despite all precautions. The message was clear. The royal fleet would arrive in less than 6 hours. Mira and Luna had a choice to make. They could return home with the fleet, reclaim their positions, and deal with the political conspiracy that had tried to kill them. Or they could try to hide somewhere else, keeping Earth out of an interstellar incident. But there was a third problem. The assassins were still watching Tom's building. If Mira and Luna left with the fleet, the killers would likely eliminate Tom to tie up loose ends. If they stayed, they'd put him in even more danger. "I know what you're thinking," Tom said, watching their skin colors shift through worry patterns. "But don't make your choice based on me. I knew what I was getting into when I first offered you those sandwiches." Luna started crying in their alien way, her tears floating up like tiny drops of starlight. She had grown especially close to Tom, learning to cook with him and helping in the food truck when she could maintain her human disguise. Mira drew one last picture. 3 figures together, surrounded by stars, with a question mark. They could try to take Tom with them, but it would mean him leaving everything he knew behind. "No," Tom said firmly. "Your people need you. That conspiracy in your government needs to be exposed. And Earth needs to develop at its own pace. We're not ready for full contact yet." Both aliens' skin turned the deep blue of sorrow. They knew he was right, but it didn't make the choice any easier. Luna hugged Tom, her touch leaving a faint glow on his skin that would fade over several days, a mark of royal protection in their culture. Mira drew one final image: Tom's food truck among the stars, with a note saying, "Someday." It was both a promise and a warning. They would meet again, but not until humanity was ready for the larger galactic community. Outside, the moon was rising full and bright. They could already feel the vibrations of approaching ships, hidden from human detection, but clear to Mira and Luna's senses. It was time to make their choice. Tom looked at his alien friends, no, his alien family, and smiled. Sometimes, the hardest choices are the ones we know are right. He picked up his notepad and began to draw his own message. One last gift before their paths had to separate. 5 years passed since that moonlit night when Tom watched his alien friends disappear in a shimmer of light that only he could see. Life had returned to normal, or what passed for normal after you shared your home with alien royalty. The assassins had vanished the same night, presumably recalled when their mission failed. The government agents gradually lost interest in the area, and Tom's food truck business continued to thrive. But he never forgot his extraordinary friends, and he kept cooking the special recipes they had created together. Then, on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon, something extraordinary happened. A woman in a crisp business suit approached his food truck. Her skin was human-colored, but Tom noticed a familiar shimmer when she moved in the sunlight. "Hello, Tom," she said, her voice carrying a musical quality that made nearby wind chimes resonate. "The council is ready." Tom smiled, recognizing Luna's energy signature despite her human disguise. She had grown stronger, more confident. Behind her, Mira appeared, equally well disguised but unmistakable to Tom's experienced eyes. They explained everything over a meal of his signature grilled cheese sandwiches. After returning home, they had exposed the conspiracy, reformed their government, and spent years preparing for proper first contact with Earth. They had chosen to return to Tom first, not just out of friendship, but because his simple act of kindness had changed their civilization's view of humanity. "Your food truck," Mira said, her human disguise flickering slightly with excitement, "will be the bridge between our worlds." The plan was brilliant in its simplicity. Tom's food truck would become the first Earth-based business registered with the Galactic Federation. His simple cooking style, combined with their energy enhancement abilities, had created entirely new forms of cuisine that both species could enjoy. "We're not revealing everything at once," Luna explained, her eyes glowing briefly. "Just a small diplomatic mission at first. Your truck will be Earth's first official interstellar business, a neutral ground where humans and aliens can meet naturally." Tom looked around at his humble food truck, now destined to become humanity's first step into galactic society. "Will people be ready?" he asked. Mira smiled, causing nearby plants to bloom unexpectedly. "They were ready the moment you offered food to two strange creatures in an alley. You proved that humanity's kindness outweighs its fears." Over the next few months, Tom's food truck became something extraordinary. Regular customers started noticing unusual new patrons, people who seemed slightly odd, but who radiated warmth and kindness. The food began to have subtle effects: increased energy, better health, a sense of connection with others. Gradually, carefully, the truth emerged. Tom's truck became known as the place where humans could meet friendly aliens in a calm, controlled setting. His simple acts of cooking and sharing food helped ease humanity's first steps into a larger universe. 1 year later, Tom stood in his food truck, now parked in a special diplomatic zone. Through the window, he could see humans and aliens sharing meals at his tables, their differences forgotten in the simple pleasure of good food and good company. Luna, no longer hiding her true form, helped him cook while explaining Earth cuisine to curious alien diplomats. Mira, now an official ambassador, used his truck as an informal meeting place where interstellar agreements were worked out over grilled cheese sandwiches and fries. "You know," Tom said one evening, watching the sunset with his alien family, "when I first found you in that alley, I just wanted to help two hungry strangers." "That's exactly why it worked," Mira replied, her skin glowing with happy patterns. "The universe doesn't need grand gestures. Sometimes, the most powerful changes start with just feeding someone who's hungry." Above them, the stars were shining, no longer distant and unreachable. Thanks to one human's simple kindness, Earth had found its place in the galactic community. And it all started with two hungry aliens and a food truck in Seattle. Tom smiled and turned back to his grill. He had customers waiting. Some human, some alien, but all of them just people looking to share a good meal together. And really, that's all that had ever mattered.